I'm Cecily, and today I want to talk about 10 things we no longer buy or never did buy. I guess one caveat I should give is that one reason we really value paying attention to how much money is outgoing versus incoming is that we really do value being able to not be beholden to a job if we absolutely hate it, do a dream or a new business or some sort of idea if we want to. And the more we have outgoing, the more people we owe money to, all the things that the average person has to pay monthly, we would really rather not owe anything to anyone, that we have a little bit of financial freedom if I want to stay home with the next baby. If my husband wants to pursue something different than what he's doing right now, I even think about wanting to eat higher quality, better food. That comes with a cost increase. These are not options if we are stretched so thin financially. I remember feeling that way after we had our second baby and just thinking, how are we gonna afford diapers? But that was such a good motivation to say, how can I become more frugal so we can get ahead a little bit to pursue the next thing? With rising costs and depending on how many mouths you're feeding, sometimes groceries can cost as much, if not more, than a mortgage. There's always a good reason to cut costs, save money, or invest into something else you would prefer to be spending your hard-earned income on. So, number one, we do not spend money on beverages. And let me tell you, when I looked up the numbers on how much the average American spends on soft drinks or fizzy drinks, which is about $800 a year, and then women who purchase coffee out on the go regularly is $2,200 a year as an average. So more, maybe less, that is a lot of money. Some of my very first high school jobs were at coffee shops and I very early got addicted to caffeine and sugar and the buzz. It's just such an opportunity for your money to just be stolen right out from you, especially today when it costs like $7 to get a drink. But I'm not just including coffee. We don't drink soda, but soda, pop, whatever you call it, gas station drinks, the big fountain drinks, pulling through a drive-through and ordering the large drinks. Like, it might seem like, oh, that's only, $2 here and there. Powerade, Gatorade, there are just so many beverages. It is the business it is because people buy it and they get addicted. And I think actually it's more habitual than it is, well, I do think that the sugars are addicting. And then also it's just habitual. It adds up very quickly. A lot of these things to me are death by 1,000 cuts. And then you're wondering, where did all my money go? And if you would stop spending money on these things, then I think you would see a change in your bank account. Also, I just didn't want it to become a habit for my older children. Not a habit I want to ingrain in them. I don't want them thinking it's normal that as a young adult, they're preteens, but as a young adult, that it's acceptable to spend $7, $8 on a fancy drink, or $3 on something filled with just chemicals and crap. This includes water. Guys, if there's one thing my husband hates spending money on, it is water. When we have invested into a pretty good water system at home, I like the idea of paying to drink a bunch of microplastics and water that says or is labeled something, but it's not, when we don't need it. Second thing that we no longer buy or purchase, kind of going with the on-the-go spending, would be kid snacks. Now, I am pregnant. I am 6 months pregnant with my fourth, but our first two are a little older. And so I have been through the on-the-go pouches and the snacks and the little applesauce and the goldfish and gimmicky prepackaged single item things. And when you do that, you waste money, don't actually satiate your belly as an adult or a child. This would be adult snacks too. Mostly aren't real food. They are filled with additives and chemicals and nothing good for gut health. And no human in history has had access to food we do. And then as parents, we get frustrated that they're not eating dinner, they're not eating their meals, they're not hungry, but then right before bed they want another snack. Have you been there? Like, I was 90s kids, we had those little water, is like these little barrel juices. I'll see if I can insert a picture. It was like water, food coloring, and sugar. And the little gushers and the little foot longs. Like, when I think about that now, I was literally just eating little forms of candy and sugar all day long. Little Debbie snacks. You know, unfortunately, I think as a society we've traded in, I don't have time, even though we have the most convenient lifestyles ever before. We're not washing our laundry by hand, where most of us aren't even washing dishes by hand. We have time. Going to line your pockets with your own income that you've worked hard for instead of Little Debbie. Item number 3 that we no longer spend money on, or I should say, I guess I don't really spend money on, are beauty products. Now, there are so many products under this umbrella of categories. I just wanted to squeeze it all together. For me, this includes 1,000 different hair type things. I've really always kind of been minimal about that because I just don't like hairspray. Mousse. I just end up having to shower more often, like in my bed, in my sheets if I go to sleep. And just think about how much makeup do you have? How much lotions and creams and all of these products that have promised you something. I'm trying to get my big old pregnant belly in here. Hi. Do you want to say hi to everyone? But having girls, it's made me think a lot about what sort of story they're being told. You know, makeup is fun to play with. It has its place and it has its time. But overall in our daily life, I think looking at the quality and also looking at how much we're spending on impulse buys, or I want this new lip color, I want this stuff. Like, I care so much about their bodies. I care so much about the future of their health. And giant organ that we're engulfed in doesn't need to soak in all these endocrine disruptors and how much more damage that's actually causing our female bodies and our hormones. And we wonder why we all are sick and we're all tired. And goodness, like from the time that, you know, we're big enough, we're just bombarded constantly. Not anti-makeup, but high quality, put the money there, and then you don't need most of it. The next thing I don't spend money on anymore are salons. Coming from someone who really did love a good salon day. Constant salon going to, okay, this is getting your nails done, your pedicures, your hair dyed all the time. I understand for some of you, that is like, that's what makes me feel good. That's my self-care time. Like, I'm gonna do these things. Great. And your expendable income might be totally different. Now, what I pay before for maybe a pedicure and a haircut and hair dye is so much more expensive today. And I am all about paying my hairstylists and people like that. Like, when I find one I love, I want to stick to them and I want to support them. But my goodness, and I mean, I'm sure their prices for product has gone up too. So part of it is it's just not feasible in this season for me. And it's not a necessity. And kind of back to, at what cost am I willing to stop? And then also, can I do some of those things myself? My hands are just constantly, look, I'm either cooking, I'm in the garden, I was just potting a whole bunch of seeds up, I'm changing babies. I don't need a manicure. I just don't. It's not for everybody. But the money that I'm saving, instead of going and spending money at salons, is well worth it to me and allows us just more financial freedom to be able to do the things we would like to do at home. Next one, the reason you will never ever see me with a car payment or leasing a car is because it is the most wasteful thing ever. Like, the second you drive that car off the lot, it has lost value and you will never get that value back. Well, I should look up, I'll try to post it in here if I look it up, what the average car payments are. Like, because we've never spent money on this specific thing, or we've never had car payments, the idea that people are paying monthly payments toward a vehicle, for me, is just really shocking. And that's because you're just going to overpay. You're going to overpay in interest. There's no way you're getting the value out of that. I know that maybe some of you are like, oh, it needs to be safe. You can buy safe used vehicles in your price range. Maybe you have a job and you're like, oh, I need this vehicle because I'm either traveling or working. Well, one, if you're traveling, you're definitely losing money because you're putting miles on like crazy. Not worth it. This does take a little bit of patience and working your way to that. So it does require sacrifice. And we're so uncomfortable these days as a society with the idea that we can't have what we want when we want it. We actually just did this recently when we got out of our RV and found our land and built our house. It only came with one car, which was an insane gas guzzler because it was able to tow the RV. We had to get some sort of commuter car that didn't cost us an arm and a leg to drive around, especially being more in the country. And so we bought a $1,500 car. I still to this day can't stand this car, but I'm very grateful for it. It has an insane amount of miles on it. We put an insane amount more on it, but it is still running. It does its job. And so what we have found is that you need to start something that you can afford outright, and then save up over time and add another couple thousand into your next car as you sell it. And that is how we kind of worked our way up to be able to get a little bit of a higher, nicer vehicle, still purchased outright, that's used. We just bought a new van. I'm very, very excited about this because of that crapper vehicle. And because I'm not paying monthly payments, I will be able to set aside a little bit of money for repairs should they come up. We just had a truck with a tire that blew. When that happens, you have money, and instead of paying payments, to make that repair. Moving on to sort of monthly payment type things, TV or streaming subscriptions. We don't spend money on it. If I have a choice between winding down with a television show or a book, it's going to be a book. We as a family don't really use a lot of devices in general, and so we don't have a TV out regularly. It goes into our closet if my husband wants to watch a specific game because he watches a handful of sports, or if we want to watch a movie as a family, then we will do that. But as a regular need for streaming services, it's just not, it's not a necessity. I mean, boredom is so good. And because of that, and because of changing, we really stopped having a TV in the center of our house 2018 or 2017. And I realized that my kids were so much more creative. And to this day, like, you know, my daughter's weaving and she's learning how to crochet, and my son is working on this amazing train table design thing I don't know anything about. They have their own interest. To say we never watch anything, there are definitely times where we're like, oh, we really want to show the kids, our older kids, this movie that we grew up with. We want to watch, we want them to see the Back to the Future series. We want to watch the Goonies. At which point we will either just purchase it, or we will borrow somebody's streaming device. I'm looking at you, my sister. Although that's kind of changed because you can't do that if you're not in a household or something like that, unless you pay extra. So now we don't even do that. Along the same lines, the next thing we don't spend money on are new devices. Phones, tablets, that kind of stuff, we do not buy new. And there's a couple reasons for this. One is that there's always the next new thing. Even though my husband uses it for work quite often, we still just don't find a need for the brand new one. The other reason is we are not going to make a payment. Again, we want that freedom monthly. A brand new phone, you put it right, like you get your cell phone bill and they just add it to the top of that, and you're beholden to that until you pay it off. Look, I really enjoy my $30 monthly phone payment. I cannot get that if I don't own my phone and have the option to a different cell phone service. Our kids, we did purchase them their first tablets when we went into the RV because we wanted them to be able to have contact with family and friends since we were moving. And so we've got those used and refurbished. Also, I would never, ever, ever buy my children new devices. That is insane to me. So we don't spend money on that. I think that we have never spent money on and will never spend money on. Like, I think my husband would, you know, cut off his arm and still be able to drive before ever paying for a food delivery payment. Those are things like your Grubhub or your, I don't even know what the other ones are called, where you were to order something, some sort of restaurant or fast food, and have it delivered to you. I don't know if you guys have seen some of those where it's like, my bill would have been this if I picked up my food versus this by ordering it. Now, we don't even have that option right now because we're in the country, but when it was an option and we were in a big city, we definitely never did that. Or you get a tip on top of that, don't forget that, but it will add up very quickly. You will probably be shocked if you do this regularly. I would challenge you, go look at your last month on your bank statement and just see how much did I spend either on fast food in general, and then if I had it delivered. This next one we don't spend money on anymore, and that would be small prepackaged or individual packaged food items. Maybe it's like a little bag of nuts, and it is, a lot of times they'll be like 100 calorie little bag, and it'll come in a pack of 10. I understand it's convenient. It is insanely upmarked. Like, the price difference that you're going to pay for individual little containers of food and the amount of food, the decreased amount of food you're going to get, is such a waste of money. And I did it. I totally did it. I was just like, this is so convenient. I could just grab one of these little bags, drop it in my kid's lunch, drop it in my bag, take it for us on the go when we're going to the park or the zoo or the whatever. Part of it is we've moved away from those foods in general, right? So like, we're not buying snack foods in general anymore. We're not buying foods that are highly processed anymore. So some of it is just that our lifestyle choices have changed. It's brilliant on the part of the business. It's brilliant. I've even seen like those little packaged apples. They're pre-cut sliced apples in individual packages. First off, how do those stay good? Like, I cut up apples for my kids all the time. Well, now they just eat them whole, but they turn brown and yellow pretty quickly. I have like put some lemon juice on them before to try to make them last longer if we're on the go. But overall, like, they don't stay good very long. So I just feel like there's something weird there. Maybe there's some secret thing you can do and I just don't know about it. But I'm gonna call BS on it and say, I don't know, it just seems weird. And also, I can buy a whole bag of apples for cheaper than this. So, packaged food, the aisles where it's just little boxes and little bags and they're individual servings, don't buy it. This is our last thing. Things that we don't spend money on anymore are children's toys. A baby and a toddler are much more interested in random things like a spatula than they are their actual toys. And that season goes by so fast. Now, I'm not anti-toy in general. I just don't buy a ton of gimmicky toys, plastic that break apart and are done within 2 seconds. Seasonal, in the meaning like, oh, it's this show and this figurine and that. I am talking about, you just go out to the store, you see this cute little thing, you know, and you buy it for your kids. And maybe you have multiple kids, so you have to buy one of each. Like, such a waste of money. It breaks. Your kid doesn't end up playing with it for maybe the car ride home. They don't need them. And it creates overwhelm for them to pick up as they get older. It creates overwhelm for you as a parent. You don't need 1,000 toys. Kids love to create and build worlds, and they have amazing imaginations. So you really don't need a lot. In fact, I think they'll have greater imaginations if they have to create a lot of their own things. And so, like I said, we do love certain toys that have lasted for a long time, and those will stick around. I hope they'll stick around for grandbabies. But constant toy buying, it's just a waste of money. It's really a disservice to us to buy all these things for our children and then be like, oh my gosh, it's such a mess around the house and they won't clean up anything and I'm gonna clean up after everyone all day. Well, don't buy all the toys. And it's not actually helpful to their creative play, which is their learning. It's not helpful to your bank account. It's not helpful to the home or the environment that you're creating in that space, because environments are really important and children are very sensitive to them. We as adults are sensitive to them, right? Have you been in a super messy kitchen, a super messy house? Everything is a mess and you just can't, like, the kids are making noise or like your spouse is, and it's just like, I can't, because it's overwhelming. It's this feeling of overwhelm. So don't buy toys. All right, so those are the 10 things that we just no longer buy.